So I'm going to invite you all into a comfortable position for centering, especially the heart. So whatever adjustments you need to open the heart, and then relaxing into a soft contact with your partner, as well as a contact with the earth through your tailbone. Really extending your tail down like a dragon tail towards the core of the planet. Find the natural rhythm of your breath as you draw earth energy up towards the heart, really feeling the vortex that is at the heart. It's the meeting place between the earth and the cosmos. So you can feel the upper ascendant energies in the throat, third eye, crown. Take a few breaths to really open the crown to beyond the atmosphere, really opening to the mystery of space. So as we're breathing, we're circulating life force energy with the cosmos and the earth and each other. Deepening into the heart for a few breaths. Calling on the allies of the heart, whether that's angels or ancestors, animal spirits. Feeling the frequencies that are higher than our individual heart code and our group heart, really calling on wide guidance for deep healing. Whatever energies will support this experience of human love that we're playing with in this lifetime. And we're tuning into today's theme, which is about lifestyle. Take a moment to really experience the unique life you're co-creating with all of its idiosyncratic style, like it's your way of living your life. Feel the freedom of that. Feel the uniqueness of it. Feel the ways in which you and your partner are co-creating it. Feel the limitations of it as well. Without judgment, a few more breaths of really just shining a light on your lifestyle, whatever that means to you right now, from the heart with all your support. In this call, we're going to potentiate that, activate the best versions of our lifestyle, allow us to vision, to further the conversation, to create new possibilities. So let's be open to who we need to be or what we need to do to upgrade the lifestyle we're living in this partnership, in this deep dive, in this year. Three more breaths. And then give yourself permission to sound and just resonate with your partner in the group. The sound is awe. Inhale. I was just doing some work on the vagal tone, vagal nerve. This sounding, if you don't already practice it somehow in your life, it really activates the whole, not just immune system, many systems in the body, but it's really linked to like immortality, anti-aging, lifespan. So finally, because I love chanting, and I finally have a reason for it.
The vagus nerve, it's kind of like a it kind of runs through all of the body, kind of like a what do they call it? The electrical harness in a car. That's kind of that core. It's kind of like the it's the nerve, almost like a nerve backbone as well. And toning is what makes it, what activates it.
Yeah, keeps it strong and connected. So one, and actually, I remember doing a relationship workshop in Hawaii, and his name was Ida. Oh, he's a very famous elder who started a whole relationship school. And he's like, I'm going to give you the one secret relationship tip that will end all fights. And like he gave this whole workshop, and he's like, but I'm not going to give it to you until the end. And so the very last thing that we did was hum together. He's like, when you find yourself fighting, you and your partner, stop what you're doing and just hum together, because you can't fight and hum simultaneously. But he was right, because you kind of crack up. You're like, we were fighting, now we're humming. So today's topic is actually about lifestyle. And in some real ways, we've been talking about aspects of lifestyle every month. So where, we started off and said communication, and then conflict resolution, and, we did a month on sex and money and, tribe. Like, these are aspects of lifestyle. So this month is a bit of an umbrella, but the reason for it is, as we've untangled all those parts, it's almost like looking at lifestyle as a whole. And we want to, fill out that picture, because there's more than just the weeks that we've kind of dived deeply into. So we want to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, let me give you a little roadmap for our great. Oh, I see my notes. A roadmap for our call, which is that Michael's going to start us off with a little metaphor, and then we'll break down the other areas of lifestyle, like what it is and what we haven't covered, and then we'll have a check-in from you, which is, we want to hear about what's working, not working in your lifestyle. And then how do you handle lifestyle differences is really the meat of today. Because it's like, you have a way that you do handle it, but how could you handle it before going into our homework? So that's the plan. Tell us about an extreme lifestyle example, Michael.
The example that I think about now is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Prince Harry was Princess Diana's son, and he's a royal, English royal. Everybody knows who I'm talking about, right? And so he married Meghan Markle, who's an actor, an American actor. So she's not British. She's American. She's also African American. And so all of these things became an issue with the family. And she was, there was a lot of privacy, issues, within their relationship. She had there was a lot of racist commentary and all kinds of different things.
From the press, from the media.
From the press, her family, who knows what's actually happening there within the family, but their lifestyle, the way it was too much. Their lifestyles were too different to really coexist in that British royalty. So they ended up moving to Canada. I guess they're up in British Columbia.
Kind of renouncing the whole royal lifestyle entirely.
Yeah. So they've given up. Their being senior royals. So they say, and they've gone off to have a lifestyle that works for them. But yeah, it's an extreme example of, and it reminds me also of like poly relationships, people coming out about being poly to their parents, and the type of conflict that they can get, from them when they do come out to their parents and family as well.
Yeah. And whether it's, poly is a type of lifestyle, but like whether it's that, or it's, ethnic or religious, or, there's so many different aspects of, what, like the cultural influences. And so, Michael and I took some time to kind of go through, what lifestyle includes, because, we, as we mentioned, the different subjects that we've already covered. And next week, we're going to talk about time. And this is, a big issue, Greg and Marina, like this time spent apart or together, but it's not even, there's a different lifestyle if you're in a long distance relationship, but I want to point out on the time front, so I'll start there with time, is that some couples prefer to spend all their time together. They're like together couples. And some couples prefer, like, they're really sovereign and separate. And the challenge becomes when you have someone who's, highest, best expression in partnership is separate. You have someone like that partnering with someone who wants to spend time all together all the time. Now you're in this, this dynamic conflict. And that usually doesn't, work. So some of these combinations of like, oh, your lifestyle can be really different. Great. Sometimes that, Michael surfs. I have no interest in surfing. It actually is something that works really well in our lifestyle. But some things, like if Michael, wanted to be poly and I didn't, that would create more, that for us would be a bottom line, for some people not. But there is almost like there's all these differences that we're going to point out. And some of those differences are actually enhancing and awesome, and some of them are detrimental. So we want you to listen to the different kind of areas, but also think about which ones are the ones that work for you or don't work for you if they're different. Mm-hmm. So next week, we'll talk about time. Of course, surfing is an example of a hobby. Theater is something that Michael and I both do really well together. That's a hobby we both share, mm-hmm. But there's hobbies that we have separate. Mm-hmm. You want to go back and forth? Yeah.
So think about these in terms of like, obviously how well you do them together and how well you don't, which things are your superpowers that you do well on, So music, movies, and book tastes. Whether you're early birds or
wait, hold on.
night
So
owls.
with music, it's like some people will actually, we actually talked about Tinder and matchmaking, right? So some people will say, hey, I'm looking for a country Western dancer. Like their partnership has to be into country Western dance. That's what they're looking for. That's what their life is. Like that defines them. Some people are like, I don't care what kind of music you listen to. We talked about, thrasher movies versus rom-com. Like you might both love movies, but if they're so different.
Or you might, exactly. And these could be, so they can be big or small or, so whether you're an early bird or a night owl, we've had some conflicts in our relationship around that.
Specifically around, if you like sex in the morning versus sex at night.
Sleeping arrangements, some people like to sleep in a different room. Some people like to sleep in the same bed as couples, which just seems so strange to me. But, whether you're clean or messy.
This, and there's particular kinds of clean and messy. There's like that even, when living together, you'll realize sometimes couples are clean in similar ways and messy in different ways. And, but this is one of the lifestyle areas that has the most like bickering and irritation because, whether you're nagging about taking out the trash or leaving towels on the floor, like those kinds of, how you communicate about that is also an issue.
And physical cleanliness, how often you shower,
hygiene.
Yeah, hygiene, exactly. Whether you're athletic or sedentary, that's one.
And the athletic thing, it's also, do you do your athletics together? You might both be athletic, but do you do the sports together or apart?
How much your sense of adventure is versus your sense of not being adventurous, or homebody and travel, whether you like to travel a lot or don't like to travel. Nature versus city.
This is another one. Like maybe you both like to travel, but some of you want to travel more to see the cities and hang out in the cafes, and others want to travel into the woods.
Yeah, want to go hiking and be out camping or in the country. And then the nature versus city, vacation destinations, where you like to go, climate preferences, whether you like to be up in the snow, or in the desert.
I would say, like I'm a tropical weather person. That's just like my nature. And, and yeah, I really feel like part of the reason this relationship works is because in San Diego.
Because we're in San Diego, yeah. Like I've wanted to, go to Sweden for education for the family,
Like,
because of the lifestyle, but because of that part of the lifestyle, and that's something that Kamala Devi, doesn't want. Eating out or cooking, whether at home, types of entertainment that you're into. Some people are sports fans, other people are not, etc. Racial and political differences. We see that a lot now, especially with Trump and that. You even see that on Tinder. If you're a Trump supporter, swipe left, right? I see that, out there.
I have my brother and his wife have been married now for over 20 years, and they cancel each other out every single election. They walk down to the poll hand in hand. They both cast their vote, and he's a Democrat, she's a Republican. They cancel each other out for 20 years in the polls.
So it's neutral for them.
Yeah, they don't care that they're different, but they don't care.
And then time, which is around future orientation, but also basic life goals. And this is one of the ones that a lot of the experts will talk about being kind of like deal breakers. These are the ones that, you really have to have the basic life goals. about wanting to have kids or not having kids, and things like that. Being poly or not being poly, they're kind of some basic things. Schedules.
We talked with Alex and Tall a little bit last week about how much he's working and what scheduling is. In my opinion, this is almost even a meta category, because time is the stuff that life is made of, and time is, everything that we mentioned before, whether it's travel or entertainment, all that happens on the dimension of time and how you spend it. And so being able to manage your time together is so important. And we, Marina and Greg, we've talked about the difference between, one likes, more flow and the other likes more structure. And, that's always the case in every relationship. One person's usually more scheduled, a planner, one's less. But the scheduling as a lifestyle thing, I believe your lifestyle is made up of how you schedule. Because even even the question of clean or messy, like how much time are you spending cleaning up? Like, I'm not spending enough.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I would say this is a meta category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and scheduling can also be looked at as the spontaneity, how spontaneous you are versus how scheduled you are.
Right.
That's another lifestyle thing. Your need for alone time. Mm-hmm. How much of alone time each of you needs.
Yeah, and that's another example. Like, one person might need it a lot and get it a lot. That's not a problem. While the other person can be really social,
mm-hmm.
and just not being around them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then personality types, all of that, Myers-Briggs, astrology, human design, all of those categories, or different types of maps that we look at.
Yeah, so we're looking at the lifestyle that comes with an introvert versus an extrovert, or like that. That's a way to kind of subcategorize all of the dynamics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then a sense of humor, which is a kind of interesting one, but sense of humor versus seriousness, and how much we can accept each other's sense of humor, even types of sense of humor as well. Pets, whether you want to have pets or not, that's a lifestyle thing. Food, of course, is, when we talk about the vegetarians and carnivores and the vegans and just our diet, it's something important, obviously, in our relationships. And then also drugs and alcohol use, how much, we're doing those things. That's really important within the relationship. And then intelligence, education, psychology, how much, how well we're matched in those areas. And then growth and self-improvement.
Yeah, so it kind of takes us into how much you're investing in doing your own work, and whether it works for you. If you're doing all your own work, is your partner meeting you in that? Are they also growing? And
is the lifestyle growing together or growing, separated because of that growth?
So we give you all of these different categories because we want you to kind of self-assess. We know that there are superpowers in your relationship. There's our lifestyle rocks because, and an example with Michael and I is we're both incredibly poly. And that's something that we share. And that's one of the ways in which it really works because our lifestyle is so similar. And then there's challenges. Hey, one of the biggest challenges in our lifestyle is, and what we want to do as a check-in is go around the circle and have you share, hey, I think our lifestyle strength is this, choosing one thing, each, so if I said poly, Michael has to say something else. What else is a strength in our lifestyle?
We really travel well together. So that's multiple things, being together and traveling. It's, really, really good. And also parenting, our parenting styles. I think we parent really well together.
Great. So if we choose, we're going to be example first. So those are our superpowers. Traveling well and poly or parenting, that's 3. But regardless, let's choose 2 of our biggest lifestyle challenges to just confess to the group.
Not being on the same sex schedule has been an issue, and how to just amount of sex as well. Yeah,
got it. And for me, I would say our lifestyle challenge is a like in the category of like emotional versus we didn't really talk, like when you talk about I think this is our biggest lifestyle challenge. We kind of went into personalities types. The fact that I'm a highly emotive person and you're such a Zen kind of solid, simple person. So that I would say it was more challenging than everything else.
And the reason we didn't talk about it in the list is we talked about it in the emotional category in the month that we talked about emotions.
Exactly.
So
this is our check-in, and I'd love to go around the circle and hear from you around your strengths and weaknesses. Who wants to go next? Greg?
Perfect.
We
got to get your sound. Sound. Greg, we can't hear you. Can't hear you. There. You got to unmute.
Okay, that was weird.
There we go. Okay.
I was going to say, I think our strength is that we have a similar, very similar spiritual practices. Beautiful. And that gives us a place to always come to. It's kind of like how we met, and it's like our true north. So that's one of our superpowers. Marina?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's like spirit time always, guides us together. And I would say
I'm going to challenge you to find. So he brought up one. You both agree, but I want you to bring up one more superpower.
Okay. The other one is growth. Like we're both such growth addicts that any challenge that comes up, we're like, oh, that's a perfect growing opportunity for us. Growth opportunity. So, yeah.
Nice.
Okay. And the challenge, it would be the style of poly, I think, that we are both like envisioning. Mine has more of the emotional depth component to it, and hers more on a play level, physical intimacy without the emotional.
Yeah. And another challenge from you, Marina.
Well, and I would say it's connected to my reality of time right now, of having a young daughter, being a mom, and an entrepreneur. So that's just our other challenges, the reality of my time, the lack of it, and the abundance of time that Greg has.
Yeah. Yeah, not to mention the obvious challenge of how far apart you live.
That's it.
But yeah, thank you guys for going. And it's so funny just hearing already, I feel in hearing your strengths and your challenges, a lot of, it's like, it normalizes it. It's like, anyway, I'm actually really touched by that. Who wants to go next? Greg and Lisa.
I would say for strengths, parenting is one that pops to mind. Because we've always been in lockstep with the way we raise our daughter, and when we haven't, we've always managed to get there, to get aligned, and so I think we do parenting really well.
That's excellent. Yay. So then I go to what we do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, another.
Except you took mine. So
This one you'll also.
growth. Yeah.
We talk about that a lot.
Yeah. We're pretty committed. We're both very committed. We have different sort of patterns. So I've said this for years. Like I'm kind of fairly steady, and Greg grows like he's like goes along and he grows like this. And he goes along and he grows like this. But but you can see it's sort of goes in the same trajectory. So that's been really good. Yeah. And the one that how do we characterize the one that's challenging?
A challenge.
I think sense of adventure, desire to travel. Greg would just stay home forever, all the time, if he had his choice.
Yeah, it would.
I know.
You say that like it's a problem.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, I would say for me, the challenge has been the schedule. We've been doing a lot of work over the last year to address that, and personality difference. I think too, just communicating
About schedule.
Yeah, that's one of them. So yeah, schedule's been a big focus for us. That's one of the reasons why we been simplifying our life over the last few months.
I tell you, going monogamous really simplifies your schedule. Takes care of half the huge byproduct.
We were talking at dinner last night about how much nicer our life is right now because there's just not many things to focus on.
Yeah.
I'm feeling some envy. Wow, that's nice.
I was feeling that too.
I had a long distance relationship too. So I was doing all that. I don't know if I ever mentioned that, but yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay, thank you.
Beautiful, yeah.
Who's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With this many different possibilities, it's amazing anybody ever gets together. But Kirsten, I think a lifestyle strength is we want to spend about the same amount of time with each other. So we give each other a fair amount of space, and when we're together, we want to be together. So I think that's really good.
It's really sweet.
I think our strength is our sense of humor.
That's a new thing. She caught up with mine.
She started laughing at your jokes.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Perfect.
It took 16, 17 years, but she finally got it. And a lifestyle challenge. I think right now lifestyle challenges, we're both dedicated to spiritual growth, but they're on different paths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also clean versus messy. I'm tidy. I'm not necessarily clean as, there's dirt around, but I'm very, like to be organized. And we had these two things left over from Christmas outside, and I come home and they're both gone, and I'm like, where are they? And like one's thrown out like by the garage, and the other one's like nowhere to be found. And I'm like, he kind of tosses his things around. So we have to have our own parts of the house because it would drive me nuts.
But luckily our servants picked it up.
Got it. Thank you. What else?
Let's see. Well, we both gave our challenges, so.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Oh, another one. I said the spirituality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's yours. It's great. Your spirituality was both the strength and the challenge. So.
No.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
That you're on
The
different
spiritual
paths.
growths are different.
Okay, got it. Beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
James and Sharmila?
Can I go? Are we? You can hear us?
Yep. Perfect.
I don't know. We have a lot of lifestyle areas that are compatible. Travel is something that we do particularly well together, so I guess I'll pick that one.
I mean, everyone said the same thing, but I think the thing that I appreciate most about us is that like we're really devoted to growth. And that challenges aren't like a reason to stop or like I guess like kind of don't take them too seriously. It's just kind of a bump in the road and where we're going.
Challenging wise, I would say like scheduling and timing is the bigger one for us. And that shows up in a few different ways. Like she tends to like to go to bed later than I do, and so we get off there. But also I'm more oriented towards having structure and schedule than she is. So just sort of across the board, scheduling and timing related things tend to be harder.
Got it. Yeah. It brings up just knowing, how much is on your schedule and how much you've got going on. It brings up additionally, like there's the difference in the partnership. And then there's when a partner's having a challenge in that area, in the area that is something that's challenging. Yeah. Got it.
One part of that difference is like we just actually have very, very different lifestyles. Like my lifestyle is extremely full and busy and hers is mostly not.
Yeah.
And so that also plays into that difference is like I actually have more of a need for structure functionally than she does beyond the scope of preference.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And I'm going to use your example in a moment as I talk about how we deal with differences. Was there anyone that had a PS on their check-in?
Well, she has a challenge.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I did. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say like sleep times is definitely a challenge, but that's encompassed in his. I actually think one of the things that ends up being contentious for me is food. Like I like to be really like controlling about my food. And he likes to be a lot more liberal about his food. And yeah.
Interesting. So you would consider food one of your, out of all the stuff, that'd be one of your challenges. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Great.
It affects me dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind just giving a quick, like a one or two sentence example? So I can understand.
I'm being relegated to eat my junk in the garage.
No, I mean, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that like I've had health issues for a really long time, and so I've had a really clean, really militant diet, and he also loves for me to cook for him. So I'll make like really healthy things, and then he'll take like the entire refrigerator and throw it on top, and I get pissed. But yeah, I think it ends up being a bigger thing because it ends up playing out in our like dynamic of he doesn't feel like I'm caring for him because I won't do those things, and I get frustrated, so I just entirely stop cooking. It becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to feel that. I can totally feel that now.
Yeah, it's become a big picture, but it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, and the reason it surprised me is, the degree to which I know you're both, James being gluten-free and vegan, and like somebody else would say, wow, you guys have similar,
Totally.
diets. You'd think that was something that you
likes to sit in bed with a pint of ice cream most nights.
Yeah, ice cream is vegan and gluten-free, and it's
in my bed at midnight.
Got it.
Not like I eat the whole pint.
I'm just saying.
Got it.
Can I just say, it seems like it's elevating beyond food into like health, like health style.
Right, health style. I'll share. Michael and I, in the process of planning this class, Michael and I got into a whole discussion about, like, I'm a supplement
Junkie.
I'm on the scale of like extreme in terms of how much I supplement, and he just doesn't believe in supplements at all. And it was really beautiful for us to get into this, because it's like, what, like Greg says, like, what's underlying. He's like, are you trying to make me last longer, like and with Kirsten and Jonathan leaving a little bit early, we want to hear from you before you go, but this is where we came into agreement about the vagal toning. We're like, he doesn't need to supplement. We just need to tone more. That way he'll live long. But
I'm okay with the toning and singing and doing all that stuff.
So how we handle differences is, right now we're handling them in a certain way. And the goal of this class, and perhaps even this month, is to look at, can we handle them a little bit differently and get better results in it. So let's take James's example of difference, which is like, here we have the CEO of 3 companies who's like, his schedule's totally packed, and his partners, in effect, like a lady of leisure. And so one could say, okay, like, yes, he's got, Google calendars and secretaries to handle all of his appointments, and like to coordinate, what he needs to with his partner, who's really a lot more, and it's like she has needs of him as well. One could say, wow, this is a huge contrast, but they could also say, oh my God, this is a perfect partner for a guy like that, that's living like that. He needs someone who can downregulate or have that kind of spaciousness. It keeps him balanced, right? So I'm trying to transpersonally look at them like an archetype, as opposed to like you guys, right? But we can see in that extreme example what a gift it is when the partners are so different that they complement each other. You want someone who's that busy to be with someone who actually is tending to the garden and the dogs, and walking the dogs and doing those things that are really more relaxing and nurturing. And so the key to what makes these lifestyle differences really powerful is when we have acceptance of, one's not better than the other. Because the tendency, whatever we're doing, is to say, this is the best, my way is the best way. And the first step is to say, actually, they're different perspectives, different ways of being. Michael, why don't you go outside so you guys can talk? We have Michael's best friend from Italy just showed up at our door. Kind of unexpected, but that's sort of his style. So the acceptance that Greg and Lisa, for example, that he's a homebody, if we have a big sense of adventure, could be in judgment of like, wow, why aren't you leaving the house, Greg, or whatever. Like, there could be some pressure on that. But the first layer is be like, wow, actually, whatever style difference it is, it's like, let's appreciate that one's not better than the other. Like, that's the first agreement. And then to go, whoa, what a gift it is that my partner is a homebody, because it creates such a powerful nest and sense of home, and what a rock. And, so if you can internalize right now, what is it that, it might feel like a contrast or sometimes a challenge, but you say, this is a compliment, like how they are actually complements how I am. And that's a gift to me, because it allows me to to grow and be balanced by their way of being. So that's the first really deep shift if you internalize that and take it all the way home. And then, you also want to look at how, so one is be really, like, in order to take that one all the way home, be concrete about how does that improve my life, right? And I'm going to give you guys an example that is hard earned on my part. Probably 15 years of like wanting to shake Michael and be like, can't you feel more, emote more? Like, I want you to like be more emotional or crack or show me something, right? Like 15 years of this shit. And it really was profound for me when I got that his like Zen centered way of being, because of how he is, I didn't get into the big drama challenge, like passion process with him. I didn't get into his emotional side. Instead, I had all these reserves of energies, not only, to give to the world or seek other partners, but I feel that my theater, my books, my public speaking, like all of that got fueled in the world because I wasn't spending that energy here in my relationship. It's like, oh, at home, it's in a sense, he's like the solid person. And then all my emotional, creative energy got put out into the world. And I'm like, fuck, I'm so grateful I have this kind of a solid partnership. Then it allows me, it's fueled me to do more into the world. And like I said, that was a really big shift because I kept believing that I needed him to meet me in emotions. And it wasn't until, I matured enough to go, thank you, soul, for picking someone so different, so that, I could, like meet the challenge elsewhere. So do that as a homework, which is to look at the differences that we chose, the challenges. Why is that a gift? Right? So I'm going to take a moment for you, and I want to hear one or two people actually speak into like, okay, if I do that homework right now, I'll reframe it and tell the group why it's a gift that we have this challenge.
I could speak to that. Yeah.
Perfect.
Real current example. Kirsten and I went to a workshop a couple weeks ago in Oakland, and Kirsten tends to be kind of paranoid that people are going to break into her house or car. The world's dangerous, and I'm the opposite. Like, yeah, just leave things unlocked. So we're in Oakland, and she says, well, you better bring your bags and your computer into the workshop space. And I go, why? Well, people will break into your car. I'm going, don't be ridiculous. But so, I kind of compromised with her, and I bring my computer in. Felt like an idiot. So we come back 5 hours later, and the window of the car is broken, and somebody got into the car, but there was nothing valuable to take anymore. So my computer, luckily, was saved.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very concrete example. I love it. Good. One more example.
I'll go. And part of my journey is really getting linked to some big forces, global and beyond planetary. So that's happening during my journey, and I'm just going with it. And it's like much, 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 much bigger than me. And at some point I just had this thought, Jesus, I just want it all to stop. Like if Jonathan were here and just love and light and rainbows, no darkness, just simple, nothing, just like wanting to just connect with the void, like nothingness. Like, let's stop the nonsense. Let's stop it all. And
my specialty.
His practice is more of that, that awareness is just stepping back from everything. So less of the juicy shamanic flavor. So.
I love that. And I especially love those moments, when we're not with our partner and our partners come in and it's just like, and their medicine, their wisdom is so strong, and we're like, even though, I'm down at the beach, maybe it's a different beach on, in another part of the planet, and I'm doing my practice, and all of a sudden I feel the Zen strength that Michael is. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's my partner lives inside of me and makes me whole, even when I'm not here in partnership. That's a gorgeous example because of the fact that you were separated, and we can all see how enhancing our partners are when we're not even around them. Yeah. Good. So I'll go on to say that the first part is accepting these differences, that there's not a better or worse. The second part is looking at why it's beneficial to us to have the contrast. And then the next level is, how do we meet in the middle? So how do we start to actually, maintain interest in their way of being? Because it's not just like, ooh, the contrast is great. It's also like, hey, you're my teacher. I have learned through Michael, very obviously, I've learned to be more harmonious, more inner peace. Like this man has been, and I'll take the example of kindness. There's a quality of kindness and generosity that he has, and I just never had, and I actually judged. I used to believe like kindness was kind of akin to stupidity. It was like I was really
yeah, like nice, kind and nice were kind of conflated with you.
Yeah, and I was like, be real, not nice. Nice is like, whatever. I had all kinds of fucking judgments on how nice Michael was, and then I woke up to like, wow, this is a saintly quality. But the deeper one that we want to look at, right, is how to meet in the middle, how to become more like our partners. And this is an irony, because at one level we want to really accept those differences. You be you, I'll be me. But now only when you accept them, then you can say, and how can I learn to be more like you, and you learn to be more like me?
And in our example, I definitely have become more emotional, been able to access those things. A lot of those things were stuffed for me as well. Besides being Zen, it was also my defensive mechanism of freezing. Freezing in those situations. And so we have been, coming closer. She's been a lot less volatile in her emotions. I've been a lot more emotional and being able to express as we're coming closer on that big example. There's another example in our house too, which is with Devin. Like Devin, for instance, he loves working on computer games. I've never had any interest in computer games. They've always been like zero interest. But since he's been doing them, I've taken an interest in them, and I've spent some time and learned about it, so I can speak with him. I've even done some of the games with him. So I'm meeting him a bit there so that we can communicate more. Yeah. So that's another example.
Yeah, and that's a great one when there's hobbies. Like I don't give a shit about Michael's surfer. I don't know if you have surfers in your family and they're like, tell you about the barrel and how they're inside and they're doing it, and I'm just like glaze over. I'm like,
Greg is like,
sorry, Greg.
Lasers coming out of his eyes.
But what? I mean, really, if you listen to surfers talk, it's like, I'm just like, wah, 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 wah. Like really, I could not be less interested. And
see what I have to put up with, Greg?
Yeah. Every day I say, Michael, how was surf? Michael will tell me, on the way down, I saw peregrine falcon, or, hey, when I was walking, to Blacks, I realized this, or I'm out in the ocean and I had this epiphany. Like he shares with me where we meet. Like there's a place where that is his spiritual practice, and I'm deeply interested in what's, what is happening in the inside of him. I don't care what's happening on the outside. And he like, it used to be like, I'm not even going to ask because I don't want to hear it. And now it's like he and I meet in the middle, where I'm showing interest in a hobby that he has, and he's sharing at a level and in a vocabulary and in a that actually touches me, and it's sweet, the weather report of how his morning practice was. Yeah, I know I feel like an ass in that example, but I hope that it inspires you to look at.
No, that doesn't. I don't take it that way. I'm just joking with Greg. Because
the hope is that you look at like, hey, we may not share this interest, but where do we meet in a place that's mutually juicy? So if you want to go deeper, into this practice, there's actually a type of a aspecting like that we can do with it, which is that when we have a partner who's opposite, and I'll take something even more challenging, like messy, everybody's got different levels of who's messy and clean and what area, but maybe there's a frustration, like and an irritation, like I leave all the cabinet doors open because I like to see what's happening in the cabinets, and it drives them crazy. And there's a aspecting, which is that like when we put ourselves in our partner's shoes, and this is like deep empathetic imagination, and we imagine how it must feel to our partner, we can actually go, like if I dialogued with Michael's yelling at me for leaving the cabinets closed, and I put myself in his shoes, and I'm like, I'm Michael, I see the house, and it's like, it's not just messy and disorderly, it's actually a message that you don't respect me because I've asked you this 100 times and you still leave the doors open as a signal saying, I don't care what you think. Like, so now I'm in Michael's shoes and I'm realizing this is something deeper. And I could go even deeper around, well, I, as Michael, do so much around the house and ask so little, and I could go deeper. And there's a place where if we keep putting ourselves in our partner's shoes empathetically on the areas that we have recurring fights, we can touch into some of the deepest values or deepest wounding. Like, hey, I, want to be seen, want to be respected, want to be considered an equal in this partnership, and I could get to that place of like, I just really want you to not just care about me in words and fantasy, but to take actions that show you care about me, because my love language is acts of service. And then all of a sudden I'm inside Michael's reality and I feel my heart breaks open and I'm like, we are one. Like, I want him to know I love him, so I'm going to take the extra effort to shut the cabinets. And do that, like I do this out of love. I do this because I'm thinking of him, or I can't wait for him to come into the kitchen and feel like a respected king, and it may seem, whatever the argument is, if you do the aspecting of putting yourself in the shoes, you can go deeper and deeper and get to the heart of the difference, which is actually a place where we're all one, like at the value level or the wounding level, it's all one heart. It's like we come into a deeper understanding of this part of our partners being complements to us. So that can be done, as I just kind of cognitively modeled it. It can be done in journaling. It can be done, if you've been initiated to aspecting in ISTA, where you bring a whole emotional release, to it.
Or Gestalt, if you're familiar with Gestalt work.
Yeah, so voice dialogue, but the practice of putting yourself in your partner's shoes on whatever topic is really different will be enriching to the depths of the bond. And I want you to take the things, like the two things mentioned here in this session, and do that work this month. And you can actually, you can do it separately and then talk about the results together. Say, hey, I made this realization about us and you, and now as a result, I'm really committed, this month to closing the cabinet doors or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see if there's any questions or comments about that. But I would say the final thing, in all of this is, how can we handle our differences differently than we've handled them in the past? And that's a cognitive shift that ideally translates to behavioral.
One thing I've noticed too, like especially within our emotional differences with Kamala Devi and I, is sometimes if I can, not just meeting in the middle, but if I can like throw myself more over onto her side, sometimes that satisfies a need that she has, and she doesn't respond as much. So it's kind of, instead of meeting in the middle, it's sometimes going a little bit over, but not permanently, but just to kind of test the waters and see what it's like. It'd be like her coming out and surfing, with me for, a week or something. And then me realizing, oh, I really don't need that. I don't need that anymore. So I'm not going to even ask her for it anymore. Can
you give an example that's more real than surfing?
Yeah.
That's not
I'm trying to think of another thing that we do sometimes that I don't like so much that you like.
Yours about timing, sex timing?
Yeah, that's a perfect example, Greg. So in the morning, so let's say I like to have sex in the morning, she likes to have sex at night. And so I make it a special ritual that I'm going to have sex with her every night for the next 7 nights. And I do that. And then at the end of that, she's like, okay, enough. I don't need it so much anymore. So that's a perfect one, Greg. So did you have one in your example? I took that one on right away, but were you feeling that for yourself, Greg? No.
Yeah. So sex.
Oops, you're muted too.
The sex examples. It's a delicate, nuanced one that brings up more, core stuff, but we'll stay with it because I think it's valuable. A lot of times I'll have let's see, like there may even be a story of like, oh, I give you more blowjobs and you go down on me, or there might be a scoreboard in sex, right? Like where we have that, and what Michael's suggesting is like, if it's not crossing your or anyone's boundaries, where we can be really generous with this, that if we have the reserves to be generous in our, despite whatever limiting belief or story or judgment or irritation we have, that generosity can actually alchemize some of the limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And that's, I find very true in sexuality, because sex brings up our wounding and our self-worth, but it also brings up, the magical energy that orgasmic energy can break through a lot of that wounding. It's so delicate because there's the, fake it until you make it, with a lot of it, whether, this is wisdom that we teach people, is like, okay, well, if you're not feeling it, do it anyway. And then eventually it'll come. And you don't want to do this with sex. You don't want to fake it to where you're re-wounding yourself if there's wounding. So it's a little bit delicate, but I do believe that if it's about scheduling, if it's about, spiritual, like even the spiritual growth being on separate paths. I know Kirsten and Jonathan, both of you have been like, okay, well, let me try each other's spiritual paths. And by doing that, there's a stretching, there's a meeting each other, and then there's also learning of what is true north in that process. Yeah. Okay, so let's open it to just questions and comments, because I feel we've covered a lot here, and the goal really is what serves you. What are you taking from this? So I think it's clear what I'm asking everyone to do for homework. But I would love to hear questions and comments that'll help you do it better, do it at your best.
Yeah.
Marina.
Yeah. So I think Greg and I have done a pretty good job at understanding the other's perspective and aspecting and being in their world and going beyond the middle ground somewhere. We get that. And I feel like we've been practicing that a lot. And we always start with what's the medicine here? Where are the wins? What are you teaching? What am I learning? But a concrete example for I'll just take a very simple example with the timing. Greg is very scheduled, organized. He's all about the mind and driving to the airport, driving to yoga is on his calendar. And he wants me to accept that all the time. And it's my challenge, my personal challenge and my wound and my story is that I have no extra time even for me. I have maybe an hour of solo time for myself. And in between I got laundry, cooking dinner, my daughter, and then, he wants me to be on time and to talk. And when I'm late for something, that will push and really touch on his wound of I'm not respected. If you're not respecting my calendar, you're deeply disrespecting me, which is his wounding. Mm-hmm. So it's when my challenge kind of crosses into his wounding, it's very challenging because then he can go into his story. I've got my perfect excuses and my story. And although we understand that the benefits of the opposite of wow, his ways of organizing is helping me organize my schedules with my business, my daughter, and the entire life. That's great. I see the benefit in it. But the reality is that, I'm not always on time. Because I struggle for every 15 minutes that I have, which, is not fun for me, but he doesn't get that because it's not part of his world. So it's there's just, do you get it?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm curious if there's reflections from the group or any feedback that you want to offer, Marina. Thank you for vulnerably just saying, hey, this is up. And I hear that the consciousness, you guys both have an understanding of everything that I've taught here. You're in the practice of it. And then when the rubber meets the road, there's a particular pattern of, as much as I respect his time, my life doesn't allow, I'm not able to show up, on time all the time for him. And when I do, he's taking it personally. And so we're in this loop of, causing each other pain, on this difference. And, how can we, this is a great example, how can we this month scratch the record, break that pattern and do it differently, and or handle it differently, whether it's our reactions to it or it's our actual practice of, showing up. And so I'm curious from the group, if you have we can brainstorm some different ways of doing it.
Particularly, when it pushes on his wound and where I'm forced to sacrifice something that's beyond my comfort zone, beyond the learning curves.
Yeah, you're
so
already
there's that
max of your learning curve. You're stretching already. And then you're, deficient in your alone time. So you need more alone time. And then if you're 15 minutes late to Greg, it's you guys go into this whole pattern.
Yeah.
Any reflections from the group on that?
We've dealt with some of this in the past, and whether it's leaving to go somewhere on time or changes that happen in the schedule. And the thing that has worked the most for us in the past when we've had these types of challenges is trying as quickly as we can to drop out of the content of the conversation and go into more of that, the wounding, the context part of it. Like what is it that's really coming up for you? You know, and the thing that we've kind of worked on over the years is, and the record scratch for us is just voicing, I'm triggered right now. Right. Instead of reacting, it's putting that little space between stimulus and response, just to say, this is bringing some shit up for me. And then it's almost like a pause button. And then it allows us to have a separate sidebar discussion around what is it that came up. Like, this reminds me of a time in my past when something happened and I felt disrespected, or you know, like, you know, my parents never picked me up on time, and it used to really bug me because I would sit out, you know, alone. So like dropping out of the content and going into the wound a little bit has been helpful for us, because then we develop the understanding, and then when it comes up again, we're a little more mindful, and have found that we're faster to apologize or to interrupt it, to say, oh, I realized I just did that thing that you know, you told me before, you know, reminds you of when your parents, you know, did something shitty to you when you were a kid. So I'm sorry, that's not what my intent was. And then we can actually redirect the conversation. So we pop in and out of the content of the conversation more frequently as a result of that.
Beautifully
Nice,
said. Beautifully
Thank you.
said. I love that example, because it makes such a pristine distinction between, you know, the historic wounding and the actual strategy, right? And the actual strategy is, you know, what do I need to do to meet on time, or how do we, you know, arrange this? And that's what you're calling the content, but actually going underneath. And that, I think, is, it's important to address both. And I say that because I love the way you said it, Greg. I do have a sense that Greg Rex could do more work on, oh, what is this bringing, this impatience or this disrespect? Like, what's this bringing up for me? And do that work and bring it to Marina. And you guys could kind of work on that in a sacred container, and that would help that scratch the record, change that pattern. But then on the strategy front, I want to own, you know, I'm a lead for ISTA, and I have 13 other like leads I work with. I'm probably maybe the first or second most structured person that operates with a calendar, and like has like, a lot of these shamans are just really in the flow, and it's all, you know, it's all perfect. And so to work in that field, and you know, and it's interesting, even this morning I got mad at Michael because he was out late with Taina, and I was like, if you just told me when you were coming home, you know, like, there's an impulse in me that needs my time respected. But so there's the deeper work to look at why, but there's also, I wouldn't be in this field if I didn't relax around the people and say, like, I can't expect them to show up on my time. Like, if I keep expecting them to show up in my way, I'm going to be in hell the entire time I'm working with them. So I'm challenging you, Greg, around, hey, I want this person to show up at this time, but maybe when I'm dealing with Marina as she's in the learning curve of working with her schedule, not alone time and her kids, I need to get that it's a 15-minute like window, that she's not necessarily going to meet me then, but within 15 minutes of the time we set.
I'm also seeing one other thing too, which is the difference in lifestyle of being structured and being spontaneous. And I can hear a little bit of it there. Like my work, I'm on call all the time. And so a lot of the things that I have to do in connecting with Kamala Devi have to be spontaneous. And so she's learned to kind of appreciate that as well. And you know, I've learned to appreciate the structure that she has. I'm a very structured person too, but
in different ways.
Yeah, but different ways. And I can kind of see some of that with you, Marina, that you have that spontaneous, you know, ness to you. And that's something, Greg, that could be super exciting for you as well, you know, when she comes to you with things that are spontaneous, and, you know, does something that isn't structured, you know, that could be a joy, because I have that also with Taina as well. Like she'll come with something that's totally spontaneous, and, you know, and it's beautiful for me to be able to, you know, just accept that.
So the challenge is both directions. I love, you know, Greg's suggestion that you go deeper and say, what is this bringing up? What's the deeper material, so we can have compassion? And then, Greg, how can you actually Greg Rex, transfer this so that you're excited by her not meeting you on the hour or half hour, you know, like on the time, be like, wow, I'm in partnership with someone who's going to stretch me to be more flexible around that. And what's the benefit to you of that?
I felt that that's one of the biggest lessons that I've gotten this year from Marina, is how to just trust the mystery. And also being, you know, having lived with her and her daughter for a couple weeks here and there to see how much chaos she's managing, you know, I have a deep level of appreciation for that. This used to be on my deal breaker list.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who consistently was late or changed their plans with me, it meant they disrespected me. And because I made that connection that I was being disrespected consistently, that I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who didn't care about me like that. So that's no longer true. That's not on I don't get triggered. If she's late, my request is that she texts me and let me know as soon as something's going to be happening and that she's going to be late. But I don't get triggered the way I used to. So I think I've grown a lot in this area. I think the next level for me is to embrace the fun part of it, like Michael's saying, and how to make that the beauty, the blessing, instead of something that I'm just okay with and I just keep myself busy until she does come. How can I make it more of a blessing and enhance it? So
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you. So, you know, we're coming up towards the end of our time together, and I wanted to see if there's someone else, questions and comments about this, like something else that's alive. The other impulse I have is for you to kind of say, hey, for you to self-direct, distill down, what is the one? So we've heard from Greg and Marina. We know what they're tracking, the piece that they're working on around lifestyle difference that they want to transform this month. Because even though it's like, ooh, I've seen growth, it's like, yeah, growth is great, but let's break through it to another level this month, right? Let's take it to the next level of upgrade. I'd love to hear who else knows, here's how I'm gonna apply this.
Well, I was just excited about maybe just going through the list and just seeing which ones we felt we were out of sync on, and then doing this process of, you know, that I wrote in 4 steps. But, and then I also heard you say, how can we handle differences differently than we have in the past? Sure. So, and I feel like you gave us a way to like look at, say, our sense of adventure and travel disparity, you know, and do this process of how does it improve my life and where do we meet in the middle, and then some aspecting if we want, and then maybe even take it to what Michael said about being very generous and like lean into the other person. So I feel like I would like to do that process.
On which pattern?
On travel.
I think for me, on the adventure, sense of adventure and travel. And then, you know, Greg's was around schedule, was the one that you identified as the challenge.
Yeah, and from schedule, it was more of the
spontaneity.
Early bird versus night owl.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was looking at that one too. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's great. And thank you for summarizing the homework, because that's exactly what, needed to check for understanding. Good. Yeah. James and Sharmila, you want to weigh in?
Go for it. Boo Boo.
No.
I don't know. I mean, I think the thing for me to look at in relationship to the like scheduling and timing pattern is kind of like you were saying when you used this as an example of how do I learn from Sharmila's orientation to downregulate and be relaxed, and rather than being in the frustration of things not being able to be as structured or scheduled as makes my life easier. How do I take that as a opportunity and lesson for me to be able to downregulate more easily and not kind of be on the go as much as I am.
Nice. And as I hear you speak it, which is great, we're focusing on it this month, but as we can see, this is like lifetimes karmic pattern breaking, right? Like you don't have a CEO of company saying, oh, in 1 month, I want you to break through to a new way of doing it, but make that new way of doing it something that you carry on, continuously. And I, even when we talk about personality types, and some of these are so ingrained, some of this work is ancestral work. We're talking about deep patterns of who we are and what we bring to relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So bring all the perspective with you of and here's a big perspective for you, which is that we're all these divine emanations. Each one of us is the God force expressing itself through the unique, perspective that we hold in the universe. And we've found another perspective to partner with that can enrich, our experience as divine, experiencing the divine. Like we can now be enriched by, wow, here's another divine perspective. And to get that those ways of being are ways of, the universe expressing itself. And some of them are like it's like a current or a stream that goes back generations of ways of being that's evolved to be this certain way. And now here we are saying this is an evolutionary exchange of medicine so that we can expand, and that medicine, some of it runs really, really deep. And some of it's like, wow, this, if I can really drink deeply and have both ways of being as equal and aspects of me, not just, polarized ways of being. It's like, wow, I'm now expanding my continuum and experiencing more of the divine because of this. I mean, that's what I want, the ultimate outcome of this practice. It's like, yes, I'm going to close the cabinet doors. And it might seem like a really simple gesture, but I'm doing that because, I want to give Michael the experience of being met as the divine.
And there's something that's coming to me as we're talking about this homework too, which is if we can come up with some like ultimately super creative, things that are anchoring for us, so that when we do them, like even now, it's not going to just change all of our patterns this month, like Kamala Devi's saying. But if we can do something that anchors that for us, where we do something that's totally off the wall, like I don't know. So she's closing the cabinets. She does it naked. So she always closes the cabinets naked every evening, and she does that. And I'm like, wow, I can really remember that now, and so it gives me something to tie together with in the future. So and that I'm leaving to you guys. If you can come up, I'd love to hear next week, some creative solutions that have come up that are, theatrical and exciting or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. The like, hey, let's, with the play of life, like everything that's been spoken in this circle are all problems of abundance. We're all incredibly fortunate and affluent and like, you know, like our lifestyles are so incredibly rich, and it's like how to bring more flair and passion and excitement to the problems that we have, and say like, thank God this challenge, you know, is something I get to play with, because life without those challenges would be pretty flat.
Can we hear from Kirsten? I think Kirsten and Jonathan are the last.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Jonathan headed out, but.
Oh, Jonathan's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan headed out, but.
Oh, Jonathan turned into a dog.
That's big.
This really, it has been our number one challenge, as Kamala, Debbie, and Michael know. So I'm looking forward to aspecting about it, and I got a sense during my journey of just the simplicity in a sense of his path, and that there are times that I really need more of that, because I was really wanting that on my journey. I was just like, okay, we're stopping the shamanic humana now. Like, let's get back to love and light and rainbows and butterflies and simple, like my version of simplicity, because the stuff that I'm processing is just it's way beyond me, and it's very complex. Mm-hmm. So there's some beauty in that to his path, or to, let's say, my interpretation of his path. There's a lot of beauty to that. So I want to do some aspecting around that.
It touches me to hear that, Kirsten. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's very deep, and you're talking about your spiritual growth and your path. You know, having them, get into the alignment. I'm assuming that's what how you would sum it up, right? Yeah, that's big.
Mm. All right, so we are.
It's time
concluding and sending you love and blessings. I don't know if you all saw my text that today is 02/02/2020. So it's like, you know.
Oh, yeah, it's 2/2/20.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
It's a big.
Yeah. So enjoy your Sunday, and then next week we'll dive in even deeper. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye. Happy lifestyle.